From the home offices of Ash and Flo, this is Unbillable Hours, a podcast about professional services marketing. Stick around and listen to our insights, tips, and best practices to improve your firm's marketing and even your career.
So I thought we have a nice chat about this idea of that people have to market their own stuff. Like, right, we started with the stakeholder management.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me these ideas around, actually you have to have that always on. And I've always thought about that, just marketing your function or team internally.
Well, think about it this way.
Yeah.
When we send people out to date and things like that, and when we send people out to like get new jobs, they have to sell themselves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest issue, this is off the back of a conversation that you and I had, is that if you want to do marketing, you need to know how to sell. You need sales skills. If you can't have sales skills, you might as well not be a marketer and get into marketing research and like to study all those pestle analysis and stuff. Yeah.
And that, by the way, that is I could give like a 20-minute rant on something you just said, because this idea of selling yourself, like there's two ways of doing it.
Yeah.
You can get out in front of the thing and just lead the conversation. Like you have a vision about what marketing does for the firm. You're very clear about how your function or team helps with that, what you do, what it is you're selling or providing to the business, and how the business can get it. You can do all that. And that is actually my preferred version, right? We can talk about that. That's what you should be doing. Mm-hmm. In reality, what I see a lot is the self-defense angle. Do you know what I mean? Like people do stuff and then they compile like 60-page reports on like we do an event and then there has to be a making of video and a 20-page PowerPoint, blah, blah, and look at all the metrics and it's all sort of made up after the fact to sort of desperately clarify how valuable that was. And that always annoys me for two reasons. A, I hate doing reports. it's just not my thing. And B, it's so much better to sort of lead with the clarity and lead with the vision and lead with the specified services, because there's no questions about the value of that. No, if you say, so we have looked at data, we know most of the best leads we do come through, I don't know, this podcast. So that's what we're going to get real good at. Here's how we do a podcast. These are the process, blah, blah, blah. No one in the business will say, oh, could you send me the 60-slide deck for last episode? No one has none of that, because people just say, oh my God, that shit is well thought out. I get that must be working. I'll stop here, but that's my rant. Like there's two angles.
No, this makes sense. See, what we are essentially now trying to do is build a better marketer. Last time we talked about like how marketers need to have communication skills. People need to communicate.
Yeah.
They lack that. And now we're telling marketers, you guys better know how to do sales as well. And here's the funny thing from what you just said, is that people who sell, they go and sell first and then think about the justification and the ROI and stuff like that. They look more on getting the deals and closing. And then after that, they spend time thinking, how much did we spend to get those sales? So maybe we need a balance here. We need some amount of understanding. Yeah, you go ahead and I'll tell.
No, sorry, but I just want to say, because of the sales thing, I would actually say, for me, it's not even, you're right in the selling, but the specificity is people are good at selling, are actually good at creating the value up front and leading with that. Like you just have to give something, maybe even without the expectation of seeing anything in return, because that's how it works. And that's especially true, I think, in consulting, which is all about building trust and relationships and so forth. And same is true internally. Like if I think hard about what the business needs most, and then I build my team to that, and then I'm very clear to the business how they can get that help, there's a ton of value in that already. If I do none of that, and I just take orders and I execute the event, and I then create a fancy PowerPoint that costs, I'm going to make up a number, $2,000 because there's high-res photos in it, that doesn't have much value. So the first time someone in the business gets that, the opposite of trust might be created. They'll be like, yeah, we're going to need much more of that reporting because that didn't make much sense to me last time. I don't know. That's just that. But you're exactly right. Like people who know how to do that well and sort of lead with the value and close the deal, your face on that, you're not going to be, of course you'll have to track your metrics and stuff, but there's not going to be those self-defense follow-up, I don't know, photo books of look at the event with, I don't know, I hate that stuff.
So it is an issue where so all of this leads to the thing about being a confident marketer. And I think we both know that confidence is not really a skill that you can teach. You can acquire a little bit of it by faking it, or you naturally have it. So what's happening with marketers is they are either pressured or told you have to do something.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
yes, for sure. Especially a consulting firm where your internal client has like a physics undergrad, an MBA from here, and a PhD from MIT. I don't know. Yeah, it's I get it. The pressure can be intense.
Yeah, so they tell you have to do this. After you've done all of this, then suddenly comes the whole thing that you're budgeting and you realized, oh, I've spent all this money. Is it worth spending all this money now? So then they develop all these PowerPoints and everything.
How do we justify that? Oh, let's do a 3-minute video about how great it was for 10 grand.
Yeah. And no, absolutely. See, if people had that strong metrics, and I mean metrics, not measurement. Everyone has measurement. People measure everything.
Yeah, they measure lots of stuff. Yeah, that's true.
But you look at it, and is this the right metric? Are we, measuring the right things to get the metric we want? If people knew things like that beforehand, when someone comes to justify something, you'd be like, you know what? You spent like $100K on this, but the only business you got from this was $10K. Are you sure you really want to spend this? You can do that.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, and honestly, that's where the confidence comes from. To your point about the confident market, if you don't have a plan, right, and you're not clear about what do we think your value is, how do we create, if you don't have that, but you go by other people's, all you can do then is sort of second guess other people's expectations, and then you can't have confidence because it's always like, will they like this? Do they think it's the right thing to do? At the moment in time when you get your own idea, and then this goes right back to our last conversation where you said, the first thing in stakeholder management, figure out what it is that you have to do, and then build a comms plan to communicate that throughout the project to all your stakeholder groups. To me, like, so this idea of marketing your own stuff internally is exactly that. It's just always on, and it comes with, it might even come with like hard marketing collateral. Like you could do, and we've seen that. We've seen colleagues doing excellent job of like creating a playbook, like a literal playbook. Like, here is what the marketing function does, and on these pages we tell you how to get it and who are the people to talk to and how does the process work. Blah blah. It's brilliant stuff. It's exceptional in the sense that it is often the exception. Not many people have it, but it works beautifully if you have it. Yeah.
I want to talk about this whole playbook thing, and I'm not going to name names. And
okay,
people, I have worked in places where there is a playbook for everything that marketing does in various ways. There's a playbook on how to do different things in marketing. But here's the thing: what marketers essentially do is they're very self-congratulatory. They build playbooks, they build metrics just to celebrate their own thing. Nothing wrong with that, but the playbooks and stuff that you build should be good for your stakeholders.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah,
something like if a marketer is building a playbook, for instance, it should be the brand marketers building playbooks to explain to the content marketers and the campaign marketers what to do and what's expected and how resolutions and what kind of wording and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah.
But if you're a general marketer who is supporting the business, what you need to do is have a playbook of, this is how, when you approach me, if you give me stuff, I can give you the best possible output.
Yeah.
So they don't need to come, like, what we do is make their life and our life difficult by just telling, all you need to do is just give me one line, and then you spend all this time trying to figure all of this stuff out, and then go back to them with a million questions, and they're like, do we need this? Do we need that? And I don't know.
Which is why the better playbooks I've seen have these things in there. For example, the questions to ask yourself before you approach us for X. Like, we all know this stuff, right? Because it's funny. As soon as we have to turn around and brief, like, for example, an agency on it, we do all of
need
this,
to-
right? Yeah. But when we were preparing this, when we were talking beforehand, you said something I thought was very interesting about this idea of how marketing is usually structured,
Yeah.
and how that creates challenges around the stakeholder relationships just in the process.
Yes. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. So what happens is different different organizations structure marketing around various business priorities for very obvious reasons. Companies that sell to consumers have marketing departments that are based around an agency structure
Yeah.
and around advertising. So they are much more used to that concept which you always love bringing, having an agency within a larger organization.
Yeah, having an agency model. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Whereas in professional services, the agency model exists only if you're out there to push out like some graphic design. And you're like, that's not really what an agency model should be.
Yeah.
You should have agency in planning, in content planning particularly, and in campaign. But we have the agency model in, hey, I have this PowerPoint that I need to get designed. Hey, I
That's
need
true.
a copywriter
That's true.
to get this stuff.
That's true. I think it's actually sort of a sole it's a solo advisor role of like the so and so practice has a marketing lead.
Yeah.
There's just one gal or guy essentially,
Yeah.
right? And they want to get anything done. They have to turn around and involve like 15 other, like there's a social team, there is business development, there is someone in the presentation pool who does the slideshow thing, the PowerPoint thing you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So they have to work with umpteenth people. And again, for that purpose, it would help to have processes, stuff figured out in advance, and to the point where you can write them up and share them around, like like we just discussed.
So now I don't want to get into org structure, but I will say like
because because that's
I will touch on it, but I do want to talk about like the stakeholder stuff. So as a marketer, you have two sets of stakeholders. You have your business stakeholders, and then you have your marketing stakeholders. And no matter how you think about it, there's always going to be these two sets of stakeholders because you're not a one-man machine or one-woman machine.
No.
You have to get people to do various things. So what essentially happens is, and I've seen this a lot, you end up being this weird little conduit between everyone. Essentially, you're like, they're both, imagine there's like two huge pipes, fine, and you're just this one person trying to do this tiny little pipe in between, trying to put huge volumes on both sides. And you're like, this doesn't really work because now I'm the bottleneck. But you're not the bottleneck because you're supposed to be like making things move smoothly. And so many times I have seen in companies where you have the public relations, media relations, those guys going to the marketer to ask the business lead or whoever the business face is to do something. And almost always, because maybe this is because people want to justify jobs, or maybe I shouldn't be saying that.
Working in firm marketing, you should, anyways.
But what happens is, if they talked and you just facilitated, it'd be great. What your role, essentially, as a marketer, the other thing is you have to be a good facilitator. If you want to be a good stakeholder management person, you need to be a good facilitator because you have to facilitate the communications between various things. I think I've brought about the analogy of being a switchboard operator to you before.
Yeah, and by the way, I love that so much. I got to figure out how to make these memes. This is how it started, how it went. Type stuff, like how it started, like the job description was, we need a strategic marketing person who can really drive the thought leadership agenda and do this and that. And then 2 years in, it's run this event, be the switchboard, and when you're done, create a 60-slide PowerPoint about how great it was, right? Sort of justify the spend after the fact. Yeah. Sorry, that hurts, but it's also true.
So as I was talking about the stakeholders, right? The business stakeholders and the marketing stakeholders.
Yeah.
What you as the marketing advisor, the marketing facilitator, the marketing communicator, what your job is, first, you find the key people on the business side. Yeah. Identify them, identify their needs, then find the next in line, because one person, because these are all global organizations, so they'll have different people for different regions. Probably they'll have different like sectors or functions or offerings or whatever the term is. You got to find all these key people on the top, and that's not going to be more than 10 people. That's the most maximum it should be. These 10 people will be your key stakeholders.
What's your advice if it's many more? Is that should you reconsider your employment choices, or what's that?
If you have much more than that, then I'll be honest, it's basically a corporation structured like a government.
Yeah.
Because the government has a lot of different people to do policies, which are essential because they're managing like several millions of people, but a company is managing something a lot shorter.
Well, let's not forget, consultancies are like weirdly complex because of the matrix stuff. But okay, I get your point. So figure out who the business stakeholders are, like where this is going. So you have 10, you have 8, so forth.
Now,
you do the stakeholder management.
Yes.
Feel.
Now, before you go and give them advice and everything, just find out what their needs are, what they want to do. Get all that information. Then you go to the marketing organization and find out who your key points are. You'll have someone for advertising, for campaigns,
events,
all the events, all these various groups. Understand all of them and just tell them, we have all these needs. Who can support us for what? Because I'm treating us as a new person in an organization who's completely thrown in, has no information, nothing, and you're setting everything from the start. So identify all these people, get all this information from them, structure a plan of how all this information should look. And since people in professional services love slides, slide decks and things like that, try to put it in one PowerPoint slide, not more. Get all that information there. Tell them, these are the capabilities that we can do for you. These are the things that we recommend. And we have all these people to support behind. If you have something new, we'll have to think about it. But at the moment, let's start with this and educate them that if you want to get things done, these are the right means and ways to do. Sometimes you'll realize that, maybe these guys are working so much with like brand stuff. So they will probably need to have a connection that you facilitate with the brand team to give them guidance on things so that they'll provide the right material. Maybe these guys are just going to keep pushing out lots of thought leadership. So, hey, you need to work with the campaign and content people to get
research
information. So that way you understand everything. And then you've got like a stakeholder plan, a stakeholder map, so that when someone new comes into that organization on either side, you've got something to show. This is how our organization, or at least this is how my part of the organization.
That's how I do things around here. Yeah. I love that. That's very good. That's very good. That's a very good playbook for how to do this. Or to misuse the phrase. Then I think then you can have the confidence to lead the thing from the front. And I think the way you describe it even makes me think of there's probably other benefits in there, because next time someone comes around and says, can you guys do, and I'm going to say something, virtual events at a massive scale, you look into your thing and say, actually, that's not a core competency of what we've built here, so we need to find an outside resource to do that. So you can be very clear, like, this is the stuff we do, so here's whom we need to hire. Here's what we don't have. So we know right off the bat we need to outsource. But a lot of these discussions become much more guided and deliberate, as opposed to, I don't know, can we give this to Jennifer? Oh no, she's booked. So we have a freelancer. Like sort of this arbitrary stuff of shuffling around things and then nothing clicks, right? I love that. That's good.
You got me thinking as we speak. So you've got to be descriptive in your introduction, to be prescriptive in your advice.
That I'm gonna eat that.
Descriptive, prescriptive. That's basically how you work. You describe to them what you can do, so you can prescribe to them what's the best course of action. They'll just know how best to approach you, and they can be able to give you the things so that you can facilitate carrying these things and give them new and innovative and creative advice. Because right now, that's the creativity. You're just like a cog. You can't really do that. If you want to be creative, this frees up your space.
And that I like. That I think is a good thought to close on, because I'm keeping my eyes on the clock and I have no idea how long this is. But it's a good idea to close on. I really like that because we hadn't touched upon it beforehand. Obviously, you'll free up a ton of time to do higher value stuff, because so much inefficiencies just spring up because you explain to people over and over again how this or that is done, or how, what are the work streams for our major event of the year, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, you might have, if you're good, you might have documented last year's piece, but to your point about working with the business, all the stakeholders for that might have changed. So, your playbook that's, you're right. I'm warming to your idea of seeing, I was always thinking about this as drive a marketing campaign for marketing. I think you have sold me on the idea of saying, no, just do stakeholder management for your function, but sort of like always on and on a continued basis. I like that.
It makes your life easier. Plus, you gain friends within the business and within marketing because now you're not wasting anyone's time.
Nice.
Yeah, when people come to you, they know you've got a purpose. It's not going to be like, okay, they will probably still come to you and say, hey, I need a file size like this, or hey, I need you to like proofread this and things like that. But they know that when you are talking to them and when you work with them, you basically know how to get what they, how to deliver in terms of the business, and in terms of the marketing side, how to ask specifically for what you want. You may not know all the technical details, but you know what you want, and they know that the business wants the same thing. So it's all aligned.
Yeah, and they get better at working with you. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
I think we can wrap it here. That was nice.
Yeah, that was good. Perfect.
Do you want to send us off? Should I do that?
So, guys, like Flo and I have been talking, stakeholder management is really important. But what you really need to know is you need to understand your stakeholder. And as you understand your stakeholder, you can describe to them how both sides of the organization work. And then from that point onwards, for the business, you can prescribe the right kind of advice. And for the marketing side, you can help improve areas there and make sure that they can go about doing what they do best. And hey, we're done there. We're good. At least as it evolves. There is more, but I know there's more. I'm not going to go into that right now.
That is it, folks.
Thanks for listening to Unbillable Hours. If you want more, tune in next week. You know where to find us.